More than 27,000 homes suddenly lost power after a powerful 6.9 magnitude earthquake struck northern Chile, shaking one of the world's most critical mining regions. Water systems failed, emergency crews were deployed, and aftershocks continued to rattle the area as thousands of residents faced growing uncertainty. Yet the blackout wasn't what caught the attention of global markets. This earthquake hit the heart of a region responsible for nearly 30% of the world's copper supply. The question now is not just how much damage was done, but whether the full impact of this seismic event is still unfolding. The earthquake's impact extended far beyond the immediate area surrounding the epicenter. The main shock struck roughly 19 miles east of Calama, but the tremors were felt across a vast stretch of northern Chile, reaching multiple regions including Arica, Tarapacá, Antofagasta, and Atacama. Buildings swayed, store shelves shook violently, and products crashed to the floor as the ground movement spread across hundreds of miles of desert and mining territory. Video footage captured inside supermarkets showed aisles rattling and merchandise tumbling from shelves as startled shoppers rushed to assess what was happening around them. For many residents, the earthquake arrived without warning. One moment, daily life was continuing as normal. The next, entire communities were experiencing one of the strongest seismic events to strike the region in recent months. Despite Chile's long history of living with earthquakes, the strength of this event was impossible to ignore. Emergency monitoring systems immediately activated as authorities worked to determine the full extent of the shaking and whether additional threats could follow. What initially appeared to be a powerful but localized earthquake was rapidly revealing a much larger footprint. As reports continued to arrive from communities across northern Chile, it became increasingly clear that the story was no longer just about where the earthquake started. It was about how far its effects had already spread. For thousands of residents across northern Chile, the earthquake became much more than a brief moment of shaking. Within minutes, more than 27,000 homes lost electricity, plunging entire neighborhoods into darkness and disrupting daily life across the Calama area. What began as a powerful seismic event quickly evolved into a growing infrastructure emergency as families, businesses, and essential services struggled to adapt to rapidly changing conditions. The situation became even more challenging when a major water pipeline suffered damage during the quake. As a result, approximately 3,000 households were left without running water. For many residents, simple tasks that are normally taken for granted suddenly became sources of uncertainty. Access to clean water, communication, transportation, and basic services all became immediate concerns as authorities raced to assess the extent of the damage. Transportation was also affected as emergency teams responded to reports of rockfalls and debris along key routes connecting communities throughout the region. While major structural collapses were avoided, the disruption created delays and complicated movement for both residents and response crews working to restore normal conditions. What stands out most is how quickly a single geological event can ripple through everyday life. In just a matter of seconds, thousands of people found themselves dealing with power outages, water shortages, transportation challenges, and uncertainty about what might happen next. Although there were no reports of widespread casualties, the earthquake served as a powerful reminder of how fragile critical infrastructure can become when nature suddenly shifts beneath it. At first glance, this appeared to be another powerful earthquake in a country that experiences seismic activity on a regular basis. But as emergency assessments continued, experts began focusing on something far more significant than the shaking itself. The earthquake had struck directly within one of the most strategically important industrial regions in the world. This part of northern Chile is not only home to major population centers and critical infrastructure, but also some of the largest mining operations on the planet. As engineers inspected facilities and authorities monitored conditions, a much larger question began to emerge. Why were global markets suddenly paying such close attention to an earthquake in the middle of the Atacama Desert? This is where the story becomes much larger than a regional earthquake. What many people outside the mining industry may not realize is that Chile produces nearly 30% of the world's copper supply, making it the single most important source of this critical metal on Earth. And the Antofagasta region, where this earthquake struck, sits at the very heart of that production network. Copper is not just another commodity. It is a foundational material used in power grids, electric vehicles, consumer electronics, data centers, renewable energy projects, and countless products that millions of people depend on every day. As reports of the earthquake spread, mining companies immediately activated emergency protocols. Some operations temporarily halted activities while safety inspections were conducted across facilities, open pit mines, transportation route, and electrical systems. Even though no major damage was ultimately reported, the reaction itself revealed how important this region truly is. When an earthquake strikes northern Chile, global industries pay attention because even a temporary disruption can create ripple effects throughout international supply chains. In many ways, this was not simply a local disaster story. It was a reminder of how interconnected the modern world has become. A seismic event occurring deep in the Atacama Desert can quickly become relevant to manufacturers, investors, technology companies, and energy providers thousands of miles away. While residents were dealing with blackouts and damaged infrastructure, global markets were asking a different question. Could this earthquake disrupt one of the world's most important sources of copper? While global markets monitored potential economic consequences, emergency crews across northern Chile were focused on a far more immediate mission, restoring normal life for thousands of affected residents. Response teams were quickly deployed to assess damaged infrastructure, inspect transportation route, and begin repairs to critical water and electrical systems. Engineers worked through the aftermath of the quake, examining roads, utility networks, and public facilities for signs of hidden structural damage that could pose additional risks in the days ahead. Mining operators also activated extensive safety protocols. Facilities temporarily suspended certain activities while inspection teams evaluated equipment, power systems, and operational areas before authorizing a return to normal production. Across the region, authorities continued coordinating recovery efforts, monitoring conditions, and providing updates to affected communities. The speed of the response reflected Chile's long experience with major earthquakes. Although the disruption was significant, emergency systems functioned largely as intended, helping prevent a difficult situation from becoming far worse. Yet even as repair crews made progress and essential services slowly returned, officials remained cautious. The earthquake itself may have passed, but another concern was already beginning to emerge. Even as recovery efforts gained momentum, the danger was far from over. The main earthquake was followed by a series of aftershocks that continued to shake the region throughout the afternoon and evening, keeping emergency teams on high alert. The strongest aftershock reached a magnitude of 4.3 and struck just minutes after the initial quake. A reminder that seismic events rarely end with a single tremor. Authorities continued monitoring roads, utility systems, and vulnerable slopes across the affected region. Rockfalls were reported along key transportation corridors connecting Calama and Antofagasta, creating additional hazards for motorists and response crews. In several areas near the epicenter, landslides were also observed, raising concerns about unstable ground conditions and the potential for further disruptions. For residents returning to damaged neighborhoods and uncertain conditions, the challenge was no longer just what had happened, it was what might happen next. With aftershocks still being recorded and engineers continuing inspections, officials warned that the situation remained fluid and required ongoing vigilance. As the immediate danger gradually subsides, attention is now shifting toward recovery and long-term assessment. Power crews continue working to restore remaining outages. Engineers are evaluating critical infrastructure, and authorities remain focused on ensuring that damaged systems can safely return to normal operation. While the earthquake caused significant disruption across northern Chile, the region avoided the kind of catastrophic losses often associated with major seismic disasters. Still, the event serves as a powerful reminder of both the vulnerability and resilience of communities living in one of the world's most seismically active regions. For now, recovery efforts continue, inspections remain underway, and residents are being urged to stay alert as officials closely monitor any further developments.